No. Yeah, 3 months ago, I said, oh. Right. We're gonna need to. Okay. I think I'm getting my in the start.
All right, good evening. We have a packed house tonight. This is very exciting. Thank you for joining us for our 7 o'clock meeting. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Please rise and join us in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. It's nice to see you guys all here tonight. It's so sunny outside. It's like an honor you're all here. We will start the way we always start with our consent agenda. So is there a motion to pass the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we pass the consent agenda.
Lovely. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Wonderful. All those in favor say aye.
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 Right.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. All right, now that we got the boring stuff out of the way, we are going to move on to our Spotlight On section. And Mr. Mitchell is here this evening to present our National Merit finalists. So Mr. Mitchell, you guys may take the podium.
All right, Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyon, Board of Directors. It is my pleasure to be here today and my honor to get to celebrate our National Merit finalist at Sherwood High School this year. We are very pleased to announce that Finley Boyer has been named a National Merit finalist. As a finalist, Finley will have the opportunity to continue in the competition for approximately 7,100 National Merit scholarships that will be awarded this spring. Finley is really grateful to his family and his friends for all their support, which is something that I really appreciated because we talk a lot at the school about as kids graduate, we're celebrating their hard work and all the things they've accomplished and also recognizing the support they've received up to this point. And so I really appreciate your perspective on that. When we talked a little bit, Finley, of all of his classes, we talked like, what have you enjoyed the most? What really challenged you? And AP Calc was the one that he talked about. And that's a tough class. That's a really, really big thing to work on. He is headed to BYU in the fall, and he's still trying to decide what his major is because he's got a lot of options. And so we're just very excited about Finley's future. And then he got to be a Bowman. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment. I'm sure you have a very bright future ahead of you. He's like, I'm out of here. Okay. Congratulations. All right. Up next, it's my honor and privilege to recognize our ASB representative, Sabrina Flowers. She has been here all year through very long meetings, sometimes coming in between practices and basketball games. And honestly, you have brought us so much joy. I know that I've loved watching you, not just in here, but also on the basketball court. You come in and give us reports of the amazing things going on at high school. You remind us all of why it's fun to be in high school and all of the tremendous things that you guys are doing. And we are so proud of you. We've loved having you here. Next year, Sabrina will be moving on to Bushnell University, and she will be doing excellent there, I'm sure, as well as be playing basketball and hopefully having a little bit of fun. And we will miss you, and we know that you will grow and thrive there. So thank you so much for your time here. Yes. And I have a little gift for you from our group here. I'll pass it down to you. Or you want me to hand it to you? Pass it down. Yeah. She showed up today with cards for us. I'm like, no, we have cards for you. You are the one who was generously given of your time. So thank you so much for being here. And I think, are you gonna come to our next meeting and introduce your successor now? We'll meet him on our own. Is that their last day next? Oh, next Wednesday. We're not doing that. Okay. Don't worry. We'll clear that up. But we look forward to meeting him in future meetings. And thank you so much for being here. We can't wait for your report tonight. Somebody has a last day of school. That's amazing. Okay. It's now time for our report section of the evening. And as always, I will let Dr. Long start us off.
Thank you very much. The only thing I want to mention today briefly is just a recognition of the 4 board members to my right in regards to the amazing diligence they have exhibited over the last 15 days. Tonight is their 5th board meeting in 15 days. Most of those board meetings encompassing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours each. And then in addition to that, hours and hours of independent review and training related to making sure that the person who sits in this chair next year is the right person for our district and our community. And they are putting on a good face, but they have been really hard at it and they have put in long hours. And I just want to say thank you for that on behalf of the school district and the community. And as we head down the home stretch, I really admire and applaud what you're doing.
Thank you. That was very kind of you. All right, Sabrina, you're up for your final report, my friend.
Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyon, and Board of Directors, thank you so much for having me. I've had a great year being the ASB rep, so thank you for putting up with me. This is actually one of my shorter reports. So we had our blood drive last Tuesday. We were grateful enough for Red Cross to grant us 1 extra blood drive this year, and we successfully collected 74 pints, which exceeded our goal. And we are one of the top schools in the state of Oregon for a number of successful pints collected for the year. We had Springfest last Friday, which was a great success. We were able to host 29 booths from SHS clubs and activities, and we're working on our total ticket sales revenue right now. We have our final theater performance this Thursday and Friday for the year. It's called Almost Maine. We have prom this Saturday, which is very exciting for us. The theme is Here We Go Again, or like Mamma Mia theme. And we have our prom court assembly, and we're just really excited. So, and then our new student council is getting inducted next week. So finally getting pushed out, I guess. So, and then graduation on the 7th. We're excited to continue our tradition of a quick informal ceremony that honors the graduates' exceptional achievements and the support they have received from their family and friends. For the sports, we had all of our spring sports made it to playoffs, which was really exciting for us. Boys and girls golf competed at state early this week. And then both track teams won districts, and they're competing at state this weekend at Hayward. Both the boys and girls lacrosse teams are playing playoff games this week. I think girls lacrosse is tonight. And boys and girls tennis have districts on Saturday, and baseball and softball start playoffs on Monday. So thank you.
That's incredible. It makes me dizzy every time you give us a report of all the activities that are literally going on simultaneously. Thank you for your final report. We appreciate it. All right, Matthew Thornton, what do you have for us?
Not a lot to report. I'm gonna make it quick. Obviously, we've been working on the superintendent. I won't say any more, but a lot of work. I will say that was interesting. We finally had our first in-person teacher conference in a long time. We just realized that. We were chatting with my son's teacher and realized that he's in 5th grade because of the budget cuts last year and because of the other events, they were all virtual. He hasn't had an in-person teacher conference since kindergarten. Yeah, I know. Kind of stuck with me for a second. So felt good to do that. Yeah. Anyway, nothing else to report though.
On zero, buddy. The
Sorry.
whiz, right here.
I would like to just give a shout out to Sabrina. I really enjoyed, I was sitting next to her at the beginning of the year. Matt took over the seat next to her, but, which is great. But I just like having her here and just watching her grow and her confidence. And we had a very nice conversation. I don't really know her that well. I saw her on the basketball court. She's a true leader. And that was great to watch. But, you know, she's a great human being. She's going to be one of those who we hear about later on. So just mention that. It's been a pleasure. Also, one of my little hobbies is FFA. So they are having their awards banquet on Monday night. And we've been lucky enough to be invited. And it's all about pigs and cows and things like that. But Mr. Dunn and Allison, well, they're great teachers. Not everyone experiences their classes. They're kind of a little segment of their own, but just a pitch for that as well. That's a strong part still of the Sherwood High School tradition for over 75 years. And I think it will continue to grow. Thank you.
Okay, so somewhere in the month of May, I was able to find time to go to the plant sale, which I was super excited about. And I noticed there were like hundreds of more hanging baskets because I know they sold out last year. So I was really excited about that. Was able to do that. And then I got to do the high school conferences and the rest is a blur except for all the meetings. But that's about it for May 15th. So
It has been a busy month indeed. I have a report, but first, before I give my report, at our last board meeting, when we had a discussion about unemployment tax, there were some comments made by various board members, and I just want to take a second to address those comments. We have been coming from a place of really wanting to see, well, we all want to see this district do really well. A lot of us have spent a lot of time working on seeing our finances stabilize. I myself spent all of last year working on the levy campaign. So to be honest, when we heard about this unfunded mandate, it was a true place of frustration about trying to figure out how to continue to balance something that you're not in control of. And so our comments were truthfully from a place of that frustration. However, they definitely hurt some people's feelings and made them feel undervalued. So that was not the intent. I want to apologize for that. I know nobody on this board meant to make anybody feel that way. We really value our classified staff. I mean, if I could, I'd pay all of them more. And I know that they are a very integral part of our school district. So I just wanted to say that and make sure that it was heard, that that was definitely not our intention. And we apologize if that's the way it was felt by anybody. I know we all were like, oh my gosh, that would never be what we would want. However, we do want to figure out a way to stabilize our budget, and we are working really, really hard to keep Sherwood School District in a balanced position. So hopefully we'll continue to do that hard work together, and I think we have done a really good job of staying on track. On a lighter note, I'm going to give a brief update because I've been getting so many text messages about the superintendent search. So I can't say a lot about it, but I can say that we completed all of our screenings. We completed our semifinalist interviews. We also completed our finalist interviews. We entered into negotiations with the person that we selected. And it was a really good process. It was a lot of hours. It was a lot of tough conversations. Not tough, good conversation, I would say. It felt really good to work as a group and feel like we were seeing the same things and feeling like the same decisions were right for this district. Definitely helped us feel some confidence. It's a strange position to be in this place and make big decisions for a school district when you don't work in the school district. So it was great to be able to have those conversations and come out in pretty much the exact same perspective. And I do feel like that's how this process has gone. And I hope that that gives this community confidence that the process went that way. We had incredibly high caliber applicants. Honestly, thanks to Dr. Lyon and our consultant, Milt Dennison, they really put good feelers out there and did a lot of work trying to make sure the right people applied, and they did. So I think we are going to be in very good hands, and next Wednesday, we'll be very excited to make that announcement. And I hope people tune in to find out who it will be. And we're all gonna keep it quiet until then. But that is the best update that I can give you guys up until this point. All right, normally we hear public comment, but I actually never checked in with you to find out if we have any. So we're not gonna hear any. We don't have any for now. We'll move right along past that, which is great because we have a very heavy agenda tonight. The first thing on our information and discussion section is the high school math +1 course instructional materials. And I know that Marlene Carroll, as well as several other people, Penny Som, Sarah McCusker. Who else? Zachary Hervey are going to present to us. So thank you guys for being here.
All right. Thank you, Board of Chair Hawkins, Dr. Lyon, Board of Directors. Tonight, we're here, Sarah McCusker and Zach Hervey, to share our proposed materials for our +1 courses in mathematics at the high school. And if you remember, last year we did the first 2 years, the two in our recommendation, and then we had to come back and do the +1 because we needed to do some further planning and research around building brand new courses for these classes. Okay, so. All right, Sarah and Zach are going to walk you through the recommendation for adoption and kind of go over what +1 courses are, because the pathways are new here in Oregon and this will be our first time implementing them. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. As Marlene said, sorry, I went the wrong direction. We really started this process last year with our math adoption. And that's when we developed our K-12 vision and guiding principles for math in the Sherwood School District. And so as we continued this process this year, we continued to use that same vision and guiding principles and really made sure that as we continue with this work, we kept coming back to these same principles and made sure that as we came to a decision point or as we came to selecting materials, that they align to these principles so that we have these elements present, K-12. Sorry. So last year, you may remember that we went through a lengthy process to adopt curriculum at the high school for our Core 2 sequence. What this means by Core 2 is that all students take Algebra 1, Geometry, and Data Science. Algebra 1 was a course that we've obviously offered for a long time, and so that course was the same. It just had new curriculum. Geometry went through a significant change in that it used to be a 2-trimester long course. It is now a 1-trimester long course. And so the state removed a lot of geometry standards. We launched that new 1-trimester long geometry course this year. Data science was an entirely new course that we launched this year. And so those Core 2 courses were a mix of new and old, but with new curriculum this year. +1 means the choices that students can take after they have completed their Core 2. It used to be that after you had taken Algebra 1 and Geometry, that everybody took Algebra 2. Now in Oregon, you have a choice in what you take after Geometry, which is great because depending on what a student's future pathway is, they might need different types of math. Some of our +1 courses stayed the same. So Algebra 2 is still one of those options. But as Marlene mentioned, we needed to make sure we were providing some other +1 options. One of those +1 options is probability and statistics. That's a course that we already offered, but we wanted to take a chance this year to re-examine our curriculum and make sure that it was still the right choice. And then we needed to offer a third pathway option for students. And so that was the job of this year. So this year, our team looked really closely at those 3 pathways. And so we looked at probability and statistics. We looked at our third pathway option, which ended up being financial algebra. And then we also looked at the advanced pathway option through data science and probability and statistics and the course of AP Stats. So what this means for our students is that starting next year, we now have these 3 clearly defined pathway options where students can really choose which math courses they want to take. But very importantly, there's also still flexibility to move between them so that a student can still move between pathways, and which is really important if students change their mind or decide they want to take a different course. So that was the process that we went through. And so Zach Hervey is here to tell you a little bit about the materials that we selected for those 3 courses.
One on the right. Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. For probability and statistics, we recommend the curriculum we currently have. It is excellent, supported by a community that is active as well as the publisher. And we like that it leverages good collaborative opportunities. We're bringing back AP Stats after some hiatus, and we encourage the same publisher for the textbook. We felt that it is very clearly aligned with the AP objectives so that it'll be easy to implement at the high school. It has excellent examples that will help students feel that it's relevant to their lives. And just like the other curriculum, it is easy to navigate and supports teachers doing the work that teachers need to do, and easy to access for students. Financial algebra is new starting next year, and we've picked the NGPF curriculum. It's the same curriculum that's currently being used, or it's a very similar curriculum that's currently being used for personal finance. So we're excited about the ease of alignment between those 2 courses. And we had a teacher that's been pushing for financial algebra for a long time, who was really excited about it as a class and has encouraged a different curriculum, but that curriculum wasn't adopted at the state level. This curriculum has been adopted all over the state. So there's a wide community of people building materials to support it. We also felt that I think it's really exciting that we'll have a course in personal finance and a course that's the mathematics behind it so that maybe we can do some interlinking, interwoven stuff down the road.
All right, thank you, Zach. All right, so we have, because this is for Sweet Read, we are open for community review, which means there's a link to any materials that are available online on the Teaching and Learning webpage. There'll be print materials at the high school office or the district offices. And there is a feedback form online for anyone who wants to provide feedback. And then it will come for second read fairly quickly at the June board meeting. Any questions for?
There doesn't appear to be. I hope my son takes this next gen personal finance. Seems like we could use that at my house. Thank you guys very much. All right, Marlene, I think you're going to stay put because we are now going to have a secondary science adoption.
All right, I'm going to actually turn it over to Miss Psalm this time.
Oh, okay. She was on my list last time, but she didn't get up there. Here she is.
This is my last one.
Oh, sad.
I was hoping I'd get the opportunity to say that with a smile, of course. Good evening, Board Chair Hawkins, Superintendent Lyon, and Board of Directors. In tonight's presentation, the middle school and high school science teams are going to share their recommendation for science curriculum. Before turning it over to Sarah and the team, though, I want to commend the hard work of both of these teams. For the past 2 years, especially the high school last year, had some really deep conversations about science and what we want the kids to experience in science throughout high school. They've reviewed data, classroom practices, worked on aligning standards, and a lot of learning happened in those 2 years, including me. I learned a lot about high school science and how they want to teach it. And I think they have landed in a really good place. They've engaged in a book study this year. They piloted materials, they observed lessons, and they did all of this so they could confidently recommend a curriculum to you tonight that's engaging, relevant, hands-on, and based on real-world phenomena. And this process has been thoughtfully facilitated by Sarah McCusker. And so I'm going to turn it over to Sarah and the team to share their recommendations.
All right. Thank you, Penny. So tonight, we are going to talk about, as Penny mentioned, science at both the middle school level and the high school level. We're really excited about the resources that we're bringing to you, and the team has some really great things to share with you. One of the first things we did last spring, over a year ago, is we brought together a team of K through 12 teachers to talk about science and what we wanted science education to look like at the Sherwood School District. And we developed a vision for science education. All members of the learning community will collaboratively engage in inquiry-based science experiences focused on curiosity, critical thinking, and fun to make sense of real-world phenomena. So that really was the goal, was to ground all of our work in that vision. That should be relevant to kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. And all of our teachers were able to find meaning in that vision as we engaged in this work. So first, we're going to talk about the middle school and the work that that team went through this year as they engaged in this adoption process. The middle school focused on their own guiding principles, both in conjunction with that vision, but then looking through a specifically middle school lens. You can see there's several of them up there, but the main themes are phenomena-based, hands-on learning, embedded learning routines, and making sure it was culturally relevant. And so the team really set out to make sure that we could find resources that aligned with the vision and those guiding principles. So the process that we followed was to first start with the NGSS standards. The science standards are really unlike any other topic. They're incredibly complex and very, very thorough. And so that in and of itself is just a really in-depth process to go through those standards and identify what do students really need to know. The middle school standards went through a complete revamp in Oregon this year. They used to be identified clearly what needs to be taught, 6th, 7th, and 8th. This year, for the first time, they're all just middle school standards, and teachers have the ability to decide for themselves what should be in 6th, 7th, and 8th, which really gives teams the ability to determine what is best for their students, which is really exciting. The teams had a few goals. Number one, find a curriculum that would not be entirely technology-based. We don't want our kids on their Chromebooks all day. They wanted something that would include relevant and engaging phenomena, and something that would engage and support our middle school learners. Sometimes curriculum companies don't necessarily have middle school learners in mind, and we were definitely on the lookout for that. So the team considered 5 ODE-approved resources. Using our vision and guiding principles, we narrowed that down to 2, and our team of 9 middle school teachers piloted those 2 curricula. Which is a lot of work to take 2 brand new curriculum and put those into your classroom. They worked really hard this winter and spring to teach those in their 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classrooms. And then ultimately this spring, 100% of our team agreed on which one of those they wanted to recommend for adoption. So I'm going to pass it over to Carly Barnett and Tracy Wickham, and they're going to share with you which one of those they want to recommend for adoption.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon, Chairman Hawkins, and members of the board. I am Tracy Wickham, and I'm here to share with you our excitement for adopting the TWIG science program. We began with looking at 5 curriculums in the beginning, and we landed on piloting 2. So we started early spring with 1 curriculum and moved into TWIG, the second curriculum. We all unanimously, like mentioned by Sarah, decided that TWIG was definitely a win-win for students and the staff as well. It is definitely engaging, and it gave us an opportunity to move away from only online and get back to some paperwork, which is actually really refreshing. It's funny that we went from paper to online to now back to paper as much, but it also gives us options to go back and forth and to do some online. There's interactive online curriculum parts and interactive Sims, things like that we can access online, but we also have these beautiful notebooks that are really engaging to students. There's a lot of high interest from students, and we're kind of in that as middle school curriculum, bridging the gap between there's a little bit of that kid and liking colorful pictures, and those are important to also having a lot of content and doing the writing. So we focused and started a unit with this curriculum based on phenomenon. You're hearing a lot of talk of that, but it's a really connecting real world application to what they're learning in the classroom, making a connection and not just facts anymore. So the TWIG curriculum gives us opportunity to differentiate really well, has curriculum and suggestions for low learners and for high learners and everyone in between. And so that's a nice part of the curriculum as well. It was highly rated by ODE as well. So that gives you a little bit of an overview of where we landed and some of the highlights of what brought us all to unanimously agree on, which is pretty impressive, the whole team.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. My name is Carly Barnett, and looking at our recommendation, the TWIG phenomena-based, inquiry-based curriculum really fit the bill when we were looking at it. It was really exciting to be able to see how each module, it follows the same pattern, and so it's really helpful for every student to start, and they can see how it goes through the same pattern each time. When we look at it, we start with I wonder questions. And it's really, fun to hear what the kids are wondering about. And then throughout the entire module, we go back to those I wonder questions. So they start off with the inquiry, they start off with the questions. And as we go through the units, they start to find the answers to them. And they're like, we came up with those answers. I'm like, you learned, and now you guys are coming up with ideas that are based around this. And I think that's pretty special that they're like, we came up with this through our learning. I'm like, you did. It's pretty exciting. I really appreciate how the end of the unit's assessment, it's not something you can simply Google an answer. The students are really taking in the information. It's not typically knowledge-based. It is get the knowledge and what do you do with it? How do you go beyond with the knowledge that you've gained, which is really exciting to see. In my years at Sherwood and my years on different adoption committees, this is a very high rigor curriculum, and it's accessible for students. And I'm really excited to be able to use this in the classroom. It's been fun to see it in the classroom. Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to switch over and talk about the high school process, which was a little bit different because at the high school, when we started this process, we first, again, looked at the standards. And the first thing we identified is we needed to make a change in how the standards were addressed, which at the high school means changing the actual course sequence and what classes students were taking. There's really 3 main reasons that we identified that need. Number 1, we needed to ensure all students were receiving all of the NGSS standards. The way that our current course sequence is laid out, we realized we couldn't necessarily guarantee all of our students were receiving instruction in all of the standards. Number 2, we wanted to make sure we could allow for appropriate levels of rigor in each of the science disciplines, biology, chemistry, and physics. When we put one of those in as just a freshman level course or just a junior level course, we're sort of locking it into one level of rigor, when really you have a variety of levels of rigor in each of those disciplines. We wanted to be able to honor that. And the third reason was we wanted to be able to introduce students to each of those disciplines prior to students needing to decide if they wanted to take an AP course in one of those disciplines. Instead of students having to decide, for example, to sign up for AP chemistry when they've never had any introduction to chemistry at all. And so our teachers really took a look at those problems of practice and began to think about how they could creatively solve them. They also developed a set of guiding principles to take them through this process. You can see once again, there's lots of overlap with the vision. The high school team looked at things like using and evaluating evidence, student inquiry and choice, rigor for all students, investigation, and social collaboration. We want to make sure our students are talking to each other and talking about science. So when they put all those things together, our team came up with a really creative and exciting solution to this course sequence issue. So bear with me and I'll explain the change. Our current science structure on the left there is that as 9th graders, students take 2 trimesters of biology. As 10th graders, they then can select between chemistry or physics. And then as 11th graders, they sort of have a choice between a lot of different courses. And that's really the crux of the issue where we're not entirely able to be sure that students are receiving all of the NGSS standards. And you can also see that issue with the levels of rigor, right? If we're having biology only in the 9th grade, we're really limiting the level of rigor to a 9th grade level. Our new science structure on the right, as 9th graders, students will take 1 trimester of Life Science A and 1 trimester of Physical Science A. Life Science will be biology and some earth science. Physical Science will be physics and chemistry and some earth science. So then their sophomore year, they'll take Life Science B, Physical Science B. Again, some biology and a little earth science, and then some physics and chemistry and a little earth science, and so on their junior year. So each year they're getting all 3 disciplines. They're getting the appropriate level of rigor for each year, and they're getting exposed to all 3 disciplines so that if they decide, for example, after their freshman year, wow, I'm really excited about biology. I got this short introduction to it. I think I want to take AP biology. They could choose to do that instead of continuing with the regular life science sequence, but then still take the regular physical science sequence, or, the similar structure with AP Physics or AP Chemistry. So this accomplishes those goals of ensuring we get all the NGSS standards, we get to spread out those levels of rigor, and we also expose students to all the disciplines so they can decide where they want to focus their advanced courses. So our teachers are really excited about this. Once we landed on this course sequence structure, we then needed to find materials that would fit this unique structure, because obviously there's not a lot of places doing this. And so we had to find materials that we could make work here. And so our teachers went out and found materials that would work to pilot. And similar to the middle school, they piloted several different materials and then ultimately found ones that they're very excited about and they're here to tell you about. So I'm going to hand it over to Caitlin Beckham, who's here to talk about the materials for life science.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. The curriculum that we would like to recommend is Lab Aid Science and Global Issues Biology. There are a lot of reasons why I liked this curriculum, one of which was the materials. They were accessible to the students. The online platform had the book translated into a lot of different languages. It also had a speech-to-text program and would highlight in the text where they were reading. The materials were well organized. Once we went through a couple of activities, the students knew what to expect and were able to work ahead, which was awesome. And then for teachers, it was really well organized and provided a lot of supporting materials. The curriculum also comes with actual kits, boxes, with materials that are visually engaging, durable, and inviting. Things like card sorts with really beautiful graphs and images. It came with, we made chromosomes out of pop beads and moved those around. And they also have online simulations in class labs as well. All of the units based around a phenomena that are relevant, interesting, and engaging. The one that freshmen will be engaging with will be all about salmon and food webs. The ones that we actually piloted was about genetically modified organisms, which is really interesting. And then the unifying theme throughout the whole book is sustainability, and not just environmentally, but also looking at the economic and social realms of science. All of the chapters focused on student exploration, critical thinking, and hands-on learning. And I think the thing that we were most excited about is it got our students talking, it got them off the Chromebooks, it got them interacting with things. I had students that I taught in Try 2 and Try 3, and I saw a difference in them with how they were interacting with their peers between the 2 trimesters using this curriculum. So what I wanted to show you, if I can click the right button, there we go. This is an example of their kind of mid-unit assessment. So we are talking about genetically modified crops specifically. And this image here is a student that drew how the crops were genetically modified, how we took a gene, we inserted it in, and then went through protein synthesis to then change the plant. And then from there, we went on to talk about transgene migration. So how that actual genetic modification then went into weeds and created super weeds, which is a problem for farmers. It's no longer sustainable. And so then the students had to come up with what are the alternatives to these genetically modified crops? What else can they do? And they had to argue their point. And this was just really cool. The students got all of these building blocks throughout the whole unit, and then were able to put together a very complex answer, and they understood it deeply, and much deeper than we've taught this in the past, and they understood it a lot better through this curriculum. It was really fun and we really enjoyed it. And I'm going to introduce Josh Baltzell and Hope Grizel to talk about the physical science.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. Apologies, it's much shorter than I am. So I am going to get us started on talking about the physical science curriculum that we selected. It's referred to as OpenSci Ed. There were a lot of reasons that we became very passionate about OpenSci Ed. One of the first ones that I really enjoyed was that students did a lot of modeling. For those of you that don't know, modeling is visual representations of concepts that we're learning in chemistry or physics. Basically, students get the opportunity to draw what it is that we're learning. And then after they draw it, they basically come up with an explanation as to what they've drawn. I'm known amongst my students for being very annoying, for talking about how important it is to draw everything that you're learning. And this curriculum did such a great job of forcing students to draw everything that they're learning, which really applies it in a meaningful way. One of the other things that was really, really important that we liked about this curriculum was how engaging and relevant it was to students. A lot of the curriculum actually came from the Pacific Northwest. There were stories that came from locations that students recognized, and they were actually able to make a connection to the curriculum, which normally they don't get to see. So because they recognized some of the locations or the cultures that they had heard of in other contexts, it just made it something that they were able to relate to at a more meaningful level, which was really important to them. And it actually made it more fun for them, which, as we mentioned earlier, having fun in science is one of the most important things that you can do. One of the other things that we talked about was the real world data students get to utilize. Students got to sit down with data that scientists would actually look at. And many of them were saying that they were excited that they got to feel like they were an actual scientist. One of the units that we did was a lightning unit where they got to actually look at maps involving temperature, humidity. And I had students that were coming up with patterns that typically they would have only learned through a lecture, but they were learning it on their own and being able to describe those patterns in a very meaningful way. So it was really exciting to watch them utilize data as if they were an actual scientist, and it just made them feel important, which was wonderful.
Good evening, Dr. Lyon and Board of Directors. I'm going to continue our physical science recommendation. So some other things that we really enjoyed about this curriculum was how it was focused on scientific scientific inquiry, as Josh said, looking at data was how we started the unit. So they were asking questions about the patterns they saw, and then collaborating socially to draw conclusions from data and revise their questions and claims as we worked through the unit. And I'll talk more about that on the next slide. And the other thing that we really liked was how adaptable and customizable these lessons were. So this curriculum is available through Google Drive, which enabled us to customize all of the materials and assessments to really fit the needs of our specific students. So we really liked that we were able to tailor that to our students' needs. Oh, I went too far. I'm sorry. There we go. All right. So this is an example from the chemistry, the unit that we piloted in the chemistry B course, where we have the model on the left is what students made on the first day or the second day of our unit. So they had looked at some data about oyster populations off of the coast of Washington. The data was provided from NOAA and the National Weather System. So very like reputable data sources. And they looked at different factors that could be impacting the decline in oyster populations. Some of those factors included water temperature, ocean acidity, and pollution. Based on those patterns, they asked questions and kind of came to the conclusion that ocean acidity was something that was affecting the oyster populations. So that model on the left kind of shows how there's acidity in the ocean. We have the oyster shells labeled, and there's some carbon dioxide molecules, but it's very superficial. The model on the right is what students produced at the end. So this is the same student. After looking at more data sets and doing some hands-on investigation with pH and how different substances can combine to change the pH of water, specifically carbon dioxide and water reacting to form carbonic acid. So they actually have the chemical equation written there. There are some causes of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, even to the level of detail of showing the acid dissociating in the water and how that's affecting the calcium carbonate of the oyster shells, as well as so a lot more detailed and showing what's happening on a molecular level, which is a much deeper understanding of the phenomena. And again, this is really focused on off of the Washington coast, so very specific to the Pacific Northwest, which we really loved. Thank you.
All right. So once again, as Marlene mentioned, these materials are accessible on the website, on the teaching and learning website under the instructional materials page. There are also some physical copies of the Lab Aids textbook available at the high school for review. Everything else is available on the website with the survey feedback. Any questions?
I have a question, but first I just wanted to say it's so fun to learn about this from people who are like so excited to present it. Science, my recollection of science, it was not very exciting for me. And you guys seem so excited to present it. And I'm sure you're excited to receive new curriculum. You seem very excited to be using new curriculum. And it sounds very engaging for kids to be in your classroom. So that makes me so proud to hear you guys come in here and present. You don't sound as excited as Penny Som over there, with her last presentation, but I think this is amazing. And I want to commend your guys' efforts as well, because it's a lot of work and we see like a very tiny snapshot of what you guys work on for such a long time. And I know there's really no way to bring in all the work that you guys do. We recognize it, we understand it. And sometimes it's hard that you guys have to synthesize it down so quickly into a late night meeting and hope that we grasp it. So we appreciate you guys being here and taking the time to present it. We appreciate you guys taking the time to try it. I think Hans wants to jump in and say something. I do have a question for you though, after he does. Go for it.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Real question about this. So say like I have a freshman or say you have a junior and I guess that wouldn't apply, maybe a sophomore, and they've already been taking science, the traditional pathway, and say this gets adopted. Is this your question? You're welcome. So for next year, say this were adopted, do they just have like a little bit of extra biology in their science? So there's like a little bit of repetition. Maybe they missed out on a little bit of like chemistry and physics.
So we will phase in the classes.
Okay.
So next year, we're only introducing Life Science A and Physical Science A for the freshmen.
Okay.
And then next year's sophomores, juniors, and seniors will continue with the path that they've already started. And we'll continue offering the classes that we've been offering. So we'll continue offering regular chemistry and physics and the same classes that they've already signed up for and have started. And then the next year we'll introduce Life Science A and physical science B. So it'll be a gradual introduction of those new classes, starting with next year's freshmen.
Thank you. Yeah.
Similar, piggyback. So you can't jump backwards. Say you have a student who this seems to be a very attractive way to approach science, but they're already in the traditional arm. Could they jump backwards to B, but you'll only have A that first year? So once you're on the boat as a sophomore, you're on that boat through grade 12.
We happen to have a counselor here.
I can answer that question. So now we won't be able to go back because it will just be the A's for the freshman. However, we've done is all the current freshmen. Now, all sophomores will take chemistry. So even if they experience pride and choose it, we've all done all that in chemistry so that they can use their materials within chemistry and they all have the same relative science experience for sophomore year and then physics junior year, not unless they opt for APS. So they'll still be getting the benefit of the new curriculum. It'll just be biology and then chemistry and then on to AP senior year, or if at some point sophomore, junior year, they decide to do AP and go that route. So they'll still get the benefit of the new curriculum and they'll still get the benefit of all being in kind of one science cohort. It'll be still broken up in traditional subjects instead of integrated.
But it won't be B and C of the new curriculum. It will still be, okay.
And Hope had something to hide. Add.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I'm really confused. They will use the new curriculum, just call it physics, but it's the new curriculum part B.
Right.
So
It's a two-part answer.
Standard.
yes.
Oh,
I
you'll
wanted
stay-
to add that we have been so passionate about this new model and about the curriculum materials that we have piloted that we are working to integrate and cross-connect disciplines in our classes. For example, in chemistry, as we're looking at balancing equations and reaction types, we're looking at the photosynthesis equation and cellular respiration and reconnecting those things to biology. Or when we talk about polymers, we're bringing up DNA again. So as teachers, we are so passionate about this that we are weaving those concepts into the existing classes to kind of prepare that connection that really is science and how they talk to each other. Thank you.
Very cool. That's a great answer. Thank you. All right. Thank you all for being here tonight and for presenting with us. We really appreciate it. All right. If there's no other questions, we will move on to Marlene Carroll and Adam Mitchell and Yvonne Van Andel. You guys are up for diploma and graduate recognition recommendation.
All right, round two. All right. Okay, tonight now we're going to shift to diploma options and our graduate recognition. And this is a recommendation that we're proposing, and it's an adjustment to our current diploma options and sharing a change to our graduate recognition for valedictorian. And I'm here with Adam Mitchell, our high school principal, and Yvonne Van Andel, a high school counselor, which you heard from earlier. As a reminder, diploma options are written into board policy, and any adjustments made needs to be approved by the school board. So tonight we're bringing this recommendation for first read. Ooh. It's a long introduction. Okay, we'll talk to you a little bit briefly about the Oregon requirements, so you have that baseline, and then we'll share a little bit about the Sherwood diploma system because it's unique and some of the challenges and inefficiencies that we've seen over the years. And then we'll move into student recognition and implementation, what that could look like if this were approved. Okay, first, I just want to share a little bit about the process and the committee that gathered. So this was a small committee in the spring, and we met for multiple work sessions because it really is a work session type atmosphere where we kind of dive down into the nuances of diplomas and diplomas in the area and the different options that students can have. We had expert staff on this committee, parents, both parents of current students and of students who graduated. We had Director Mueller represent our board member. We had our principal and then myself. Our goals of this work was to prepare Sherwood graduates for college and career paths, analyze the Sherwood diploma options that we currently offer, determine changes to the diploma types, and determine any changes and implementation timeline. Okay, so Sherwood offers essentially 6 different options when a student graduates from high school, including there are state requirements, and the state requirements are the Oregon High School Diploma, that's 24 credits. The state also asks us to offer a modified diploma and an extended diploma. Those are what many of our high schools around the state offer. In addition to those 3 types, Sherwood offers 3 additional diplomas. They offer the Sherwood diploma, which is 28 credits for students. They offer the honors diploma, and the advanced honors diploma. So we offer 3 additional diplomas to what most high schools across the state offer. Okay, I'm going to explain the honors diploma and the advanced honors diploma because those are the adjustments that we're really looking at tonight. And Yvonne's here just in case I don't get it right because it's slightly complicated and so I'll do my best. Okay, so in order to earn an honors diploma, students must meet the requirements listed above. So you'll see the arrow pointing to those. In the honors column, they have to complete through 2 years of world language and are required to challenge themselves by taking 1 advanced placement or dual credit course in each of the following areas. So that's language arts or social science, math or science, and then an elective and additional core area. In addition to that, they do have to earn a 3.5 GPA or above, and they have to take math and science that is progressing forward. So you can't go back and take a course that isn't moving forward in the pathways that we explained earlier. So you have to continue to progress forward and do that for the 4 credits. All right. Now, that's one of our special diplomas that we offer. And now I'm going to move into the next one, which is called the Advanced Honors Diploma. Okay. In order to earn an advanced honors diploma, students must meet the requirements listed in the advanced honors column, complete through 2 years of a world language, and are required to challenge themselves by taking 1 advanced placement or dual credit course in each of the following areas. So this time they have to take 1 in each: language arts, social science, math, and science. In addition, they have to take 2 additional AP or dual credit courses. And then again, it's a 3.5 GPA or above. And they have the 4 credits that they have to earn where they're progressing in math and science. As you can tell, this is fairly complicated. And so one of the proposal that we're hoping to get to and what we want to share tonight is how to reduce and make this more efficient and easier to understand for our students and families, and then offer still a rigorous pathway for them with a little less of the complicated hoops to jump through. And so I'm going to turn it over to Adam, and he's going to kind of dig into this a little bit further with you. All right, Mr. Mitchell. How'd I do?
All right. There we go. As you're looking through those, and I'll get into those in just a moment, I just want to say that the prior system was developed to accomplish specific goals. It had its reasons and it had things that it wanted to accomplish. In particular, building participation in AP offerings and our advanced courses. And it was successful in doing that. With time and growth of the school, we have new goals and the circumstances have changed. And so we want to evolve into a system that meets our current needs and works, as Marlene said, more efficiently for students. And so I want to highlight a few of the things up here. As I go through the next few slides, I'll kind of get to all of them. But the current system has developed some challenges and inefficiencies. And as you can see, there's quite a few hoops to jump through. There's a lot of boxes to check and things to do that may not meet a student's interests or career pathway or those kind of things. And it really has caused a lot of students to select courses to meet the diploma type rather than to meet their interest and future passions and what sets them up for post-graduation plans. In addition, this has no bearing of any sort outside of the Sherwood School District. There's nothing that having one of these two diplomas gets you once you have graduated from high school. And that really becomes problematic when it's not determined. This isn't determined for students until literally right now in their senior year. So we just sent out the applications to receive these diplomas this week. And so students aren't able to talk about, share, put on any sort of scholarship application that they are participating in this or going to achieve this because they haven't even gone through the process of reviewing their transcript and those kind of things. And finally, it's a system that uses an unweighted GPA, which at the time was more industry practice and now is not. It is industry practice to use a weighted GPA. So our proposed changes are these, that we would like to eliminate the honors and advanced honors diploma type and create a new recognition systems where all students outside of the situations that would warrant the state diplomas that Marlene had on the left of that slide, that all students who qualify earn the Sherwood diploma and would graduate with honors. So a distinction recognition rather than a separate diploma type. So as we talk about why, a couple of the main things are that students can be working to achieve this and discuss it with their parents and their counselors and all of those things as they're going through high school, because it's something you can keep track of pretty easily. And once you have achieved the criteria down at the bottom, you have achieved graduating with honors. Now, the weighted GPA would go all the way until the end of your senior year, but the credits for dual credit and advanced placement courses, you can achieve those within the process of high school rather than waiting till the very end to figure out if you have done that or not. And so students and families can track them throughout. And it, like I said, it's not acknowledged just in the last month of their last trimester. In the criteria, the numbers are very specific. And the reason behind them is that we did a deep dive and actually took my son on some college tours and learned a little bit more about like why a 3.9 makes the most sense. And so it kind of hit home for me. When we look at a lot of colleges and universities, they use a 3.9 weighted GPA to determine merit scholarships. And to the extent that kids who go to a lot of colleges that our students go to, which are a lot of your West Coast Oregon schools and West Coast schools, Students who have a 3.9 weighted GPA typically receive tuition that is cheaper than a standard in-state tuition. So for example, if you went to Oregon State and you were paying the regular tuition, students who are achieving this actually pay less at quite a few different state schools. And so that's where the 3.9 comes from. And then one of the things with the 5 credits, the prior diploma types required a dual credit or an AP course. AP courses are 3 trimesters long, and like writing 121, for example, is a dual credit course that is 1 trimester long. And those both count in the prior calculations the same. So you could have a whole year class that counted as taking an advanced or dual credit course, or you could take a 1 trimester course. And so there were inefficiencies there. And so we looked at just having 5 total credits, which is 10 trimester classes, as each course is a half credit throughout each trimester. And then students can choose those based on their interests and passions rather than meeting certain checkboxes. So what this looks like to recognize students are the 3 things you see at the top as far as graduation. So they're noted in a bunch of different ways. Again, it's timely and it's useful. Students know that they're achieving this prior to the final trimester. Most kids will know that they're going to get this. I guess you never know till the very end, but they know what track they're on and they know what classes they've taken and they know the grades they've gotten in those classes well before they get to their final trimester. They still need to finish and have a high GPA. But they also, one of the big things is they can discuss that on their scholarship applications, on their college essays, on all of those things, that they are graduating with honors and they are on that track to do so, rather than finding out when it's too late to do those. I know I've been working with Sabrina on different scholarships. She wouldn't have been able to put something like this on her scholarships, and she just turned one in this week. And so having that as something that kids can talk about is a big deal. The last thing is we want to also, in parallel to this, move to a system that honors kids on a more timely basis and more often. And so we are also working on, and we'll get the details prior to fall trimester, of a trimester honor roll as well as a yearly honor roll. And so finding ways to honor kids, not just the 4 years of their work, which is very important, but also how they're doing on a 12-week basis, on a year basis, and have recognition for their hard work as they go through the system. And the final piece that we would like to propose is a change to our valedictorian and salutatorian process. You can see up there how we would word our valedictorian and salutatorian. So I'll let you read that. This, again, is consistent with a large majority of our comparable schools. We looked at different schools around the area. Not all of them, but a large majority of them are in a system that uses a weighted GPA and recognizes 1 valedictorian and 1 salutatorian. As you saw in the last sentence, all students who tie would be recognized as co-valedictorians or salutatorians as well. We would make this determination after the 11th trimester, which is trimester 2 of their senior year. And we would still confirm it at the end of the final trimester, just to make sure that we're recognizing kids that they have achieved all the way through. But having those conversations a little bit earlier with them, in our current system, we could not tell you who our valedictorians are until they go through the process of applying for the advanced honors diploma. And so it leaves us with a very narrow window for kids to know it and for us to process all of the things that go along with it, but moving to this system. And so as we've talked about with the curriculum, we would phase this in. We would like to propose that it begins with the graduating class of 2027, which are our current freshmen. There is only 1 advanced course that they could have taken as freshmen. And so we feel that they are still in a place they haven't selected courses or based course selection on achieving the honors or advanced honors, or gotten so far down the road that they can't go in a different, whatever direction they've gone in would still feed all of the things that we're proposing. And so we would like to start essentially as soon as possible. And what makes sense is with our current freshmen. One very important piece would be how we communicate this out. This would be a major change, especially with families who had students who've already graduated or are graduating in the class of 26, 24, 25, 26. And so, as you can see, we have a lot of plans to communicate that out in person, electronically, in our academic planning guide, and all of those, as well as communicating in our typical 8th grade transition process, that it would be our new system. There we go. And so open it up to any questions.
All right, thank you. I have a couple questions for you.
Please.
Like I said, Mike is in high school, but he doesn't ask these kind of questions yet. So right now, even with the requirements we have in place, how do you discuss with kids like what their different opportunities are? Do they have to seek that out, or is there a place where you guys approach that with high school students now so that they understand the pathways?
We start having, it's kind of a double-edged sword. We do discuss it in the freshman transition. It's in the academic planning guide every year. The information is available. We don't stress it a ton earlier in their high school career, because we don't want them, again, part of the inefficiency with this is kids are working towards a diploma type rather than working towards what they're interested in. And so as they're starting their freshman year, we want them to select courses that they're interested in and not worry as much about diploma types. As they go, as our counselors are meeting with freshmen going into sophomore year, they discuss it more. As they're going from sophomore to junior, it gets discussed even more. And then really that's kind of the key right there. And that's kind of one of the inefficiencies, is you kind of have to go for it at that sophomore to junior year, because it is, the current system is a lot of different things that you have to really map out over your junior and senior year. It's very hard if you haven't planned for it up to your senior year to just all of a sudden do it. It'd be an unreal course load to be able to take. And I would, it'd be hard pressed to see a kid be that successful with that many advanced and AP courses. In the current system we're proposing, kids can start on it earlier. We can have conversations because it's simply a recognition of them choosing to take rigorous and advanced courses, highly rigorous and advanced courses, rather than a specific set of courses in certain content areas.
Okay, that's really helpful. I wasn't sure if you guys already talked about it a lot with them as it is, but I do think, I know of some students who've met these requirements, and mostly because they just are very high achieving students already going down that pathway. But for a lot of kids, it takes hearing it over and over and over again to understand what their opportunities are. So,
and I would add to that, parents.
Well, parents understanding it.
Yeah, and recognizing, I think, what it means and what it doesn't mean.
Right.
I think that's a really big thing. I think the system that we currently have, again, it is complicated and hard to understand. And so working towards it can be difficult. We want it to be more of a reflection on the work that they've done throughout, rather than trying to achieve certain things at the end.
Yeah, no, I love the idea behind this.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be awesome if we move towards it to utilize that communication to get kids in the loop a little bit earlier so they.
Yeah, and I think
understand.
this sets it up better for that, because it doesn't put extreme pressure on them super early. They can work for it over their 4 years rather than having to commit to it super early.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a couple other questions for you. One other one is, did the counselors, are you guys the ones who are helping them monitor their progress? Is there somebody who kind of checks in with kids regularly to see where they're meeting their requirements?
Yeah, in the current system, counselors do academic advising based on a regular Sherwood diploma. And so we're making sure that they're meeting the 28 credit diploma requirements. But again, we don't even know if students are working towards advanced honors or honors until the spring of their senior year. So we have no way to advise them. a lot of times I know my kids and I see, oh, you didn't sign up for science your senior year. I think you're probably going for an advanced honor since you have a 4.0. You better get some science in your schedule. But ultimately, it's the students' and parents' responsibility right now to make sure that they're meeting those requirements, because I don't know for sure. I have no way of tracking that. And so that's why we're looking at this as a much better option, because we can know what the students' goals are much earlier. And then as we do academic advising with the students, we can really tailor our guidance and advice towards what their career path is, what their post-secondary plan is. And then if they are working towards graduating with honors, the criteria are much simpler, and then also based on what the student chooses that's best for the student. It's really hard to advise a student to meet criteria that don't benefit them in any way. And so, as a counselor, it's really hard for me to encourage someone to try to meet this bar that means nothing outside of Sherwood High School. So I think this will be much better because it will be meaningful to their future. And so it'll be easier to have those conversations.
No, I think that's great. I don't think most kids don't like all their subjects equally. So, I mean, I think it's great to offer a little bit of leeway there to figure that out.
And one thing I would add that as Yvonne was talking that made me realize I didn't include is the proposal we have would not be an application system. It would be their courses would trigger the honors. And so once they've achieved the obviously they have to get to a 3.9 by the end, but once they've received the 5 credits, as long as they maintain their GPA, they would receive the graduation with honors distinction. And there would not be an application process. It's something that would trigger it just through their transcript, rather than having to apply May 15th-ish, 2 weeks before graduation or 3 weeks. Yeah.
Have you talked to the kids? You guys had a small group, you said. What about students who will be impacted by this? What was their feedback about these changes?
The conversations we had with students, a lot of them came through the parents that we had on the committee. And there was definitely a sense of frustration and a sense of hoop jumping that they wanted to eliminate. And that's what Yvonne mentioned about kids being able to take the classes that they want to have interest in rather than selecting courses just to achieve the diploma type. That's the feedback we've been getting for years, is that I gotta to what you just said about kids not liking each content area quite as much. Kids have their passions. Kids choosing to take, if they're not, science isn't their thing, for example, having to take an AP class in science. We hear a lot of concern about that, and stress and anxiety and those kind of things that go along with kind of doing something that's not what you want to do, which kids can be uncomfortable. They need to be uncomfortable and they need to work through that. But let's have them do that in an area that's passionate for them and has a lot better, a little more productive for when they leave high school.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering my questions. Hans, go ahead.
Director Mueller?
Thanks, Abby. Yeah. So I sat in on this committee with everyone, and just a couple comments that might help. One, when I learned the current system, it is extremely complex and confusing to everyone involved. So I think that's part of your frustration, Abby, where trying to understand it and make it. Yeah. So it is very confusing to parents as well as students. And it existed, as Adam illustrated, but he touched on lightly, for the current or the past for Sherwood. And I think what we talked about early on, which wasn't mentioned here, was that really high school is changing. There are so many opportunities outside of these core, which you need anyway, math, science, that these students will be honored as well, culinary, arts, fine arts, with the GPA. And they'll be in that same category of success and achievement that the very math, science-driven college prep. So we have all these other opportunities at the high school, which are amazing, that will be recognized in kind of an equal way or a fair way. And I thought that was a good idea, simplifying it and making it pretty inclusive.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I think really triggered us to do this now and on sort of the timeline was, I don't remember the board meeting, I don't remember the topic, but I remember a few of you sitting there going, "Why are we making kids jump through these hoops?" and kind of flabbergasted at what, some of the things that were going on. And like I said, there were reasons for the system prior, and it achieved those. AP, growing our AP program and all of those. That isn't our issue right now. We have more kids that want to take AP classes than ever before, and it's really finding enough sections to meet kids' requests. And so changing it to meet our current situation is what we're looking at.
Yeah, I really like this idea. I think in this instance, less is more for these kids because now you're giving them the opportunity to be recognized through every trimester or at the end of the year where they never probably could have been if they weren't interested in those certain hoops to jump through. If memory serves, back when I graduated, this is how it was. It was a standard diploma with honors. And I remember being honored at the end of the fall trimester with a 4.0. And that was partly office assistant and, weightlifting and, but I was so I was like, oh, wow, I have a 4 point, but my senior year for fall term. And I think with this older system that wouldn't have been possible for kids to just have that moment for themselves going forward. So I really and I think it aligns really well with our career pathways that we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I look at the hoop system, I'm going to call it, as something like my son is not interested in. He would not find any interest in that. And it would probably just crush him to know that he has to, in order to have this, he has to just jump through hoops and maybe instead of going, into welding and, those courses that he really likes, and finding success there. So I love just kind of like we were talking about with the adoption, we're going from paper to computers back to paper. I love that we're going back to something simpler that means something to every kid and not just a few kids.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it is simpler. And I also want to leave with, it is very rigorous. 5 credits. Well, the number 5 doesn't sound real large. In order to achieve that, that's 3 full AP classes plus another trimester class. So that's quite a bit throughout your high school year, and worthy of recognition. And a student that achieves that has done a lot. And so it is a high bar.
Absolutely. Do you guys have any other questions? No. Thank you for the
All right.
presentation. It was simple to understand and we appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, a moment you've all been waiting for. Dr. Lyon is here to present some policy updates.
Thank you. Fire up the clicker.
Almost like consent agenda, but even more exciting.
So this is the opposite of easy to understand. But this is a preview. This is a first read on, as has been explained many times, the Oregon School Boards Association creates policy updates that fall into categories of required, highly recommended, and optional. And in tonight's packet, you have another category of statutes that impact multiple policies. And so there's a group policy update. So we are simply going to preview the policies that you can read between now and next month in all of your leisure time. But I will tell you just briefly that the process is that we take this big policy packet and we farm them out to the executive team, who then digs into their area of expertise, whether it's head lice or superintendent contracts. And then we bring those all back together with our recommendations, and then we synthesize them for this presentation as to what's being presented tonight. So the first group is, I believe, 7 policies and 2 ARs that are required. And they're simply tweaking existing policies language. The next, so without going through each one of those, you can see them there. And that's the 2 ARs and the 7 policies. Highly recommended are 5 policies and 3 ARs. They have to do with emergency plans, compulsory attendance, section 504, which is simply a complete description of services to be given to 504 students. And then the public records is one you probably want to look at because it does actually update the amount that we can, but not necessarily will, charge the public for the amount of time and effort that it takes to respond to public records requests. And the only real kind of jump there is when attorneys have to be involved, and there is a fee there for reimbursing the school district for the attorney fees. We try extra hard to minimize any cost of public records. We try to do as much as we can within the public domain free of charge. But if we get one that's so large and involves attorneys, we have to cover our costs to some degree. So take a look at that one. And then the optional policies are 3 and 1 AR, and they are more or less things that we do that we're updating and getting into the language of our policy book. And then the last one is the group policy changes, which, like I said, it's statutory stuff that runs across multiple policies, and therefore OSBA thankfully does the work for us. They go in and they create all the language changes that are necessary within the policies and the ARs. And that's it. Questions?
Well, not yet. We have 100 pages to read. As a reminder, though, I'm excited to read these. If you guys have questions about these, make sure you do your very best to bring those forward to me or to this team prior to next month. So I guess it's not even really a month away, so that they have an opportunity to get you an answer, explore an answer to that. So this is a productive process.
And the public is welcome to look at these policies as well and ask questions and give that feedback too.
For sure.
Right. So it's not in an effort to move this meeting along. It's not to lack the transparency. And we do stand ready to answer questions that you have, just clarifying or otherwise about these policies.
Right. And as you go through them, I mean, sometimes they are bigger changes and a lot of them are so minuscule, it's hard to tell what the change actually is.
Correct.
And it's more language than anything else, but absolutely make sure you look through them. I know Director Thorne has them as well, and we will make sure to get back to you if we have any questions prior to next meeting. All right, now we're gonna head into the action items. It looks like Gary Bennett is up for the first 2. So we will welcome you to the podium, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Hawkins, Board of Directors. I have 2 things tonight to discuss with you. The first one is a resolution adopting a supplemental budget in the 200 funds. And appropriations are limits on funding set in the budget process. When we go through the budget process, and hopefully in our next meeting, we'll have a budget hearing and approve the budget, you'll see funds appropriated in certain funds and functions, and that is a limit on spending placed on the on the district. And the only way, it's really good governance is what it is. And we want to increase the spending in any one of those areas above what you've appropriated, we need to go back to the governing body, that being the board, and ask for permission to do that. So the first one, I'm asking for a supplemental budget to be adopted in the 200 funds. And we received over $1 million in additional grant funds over and above what we budgeted this year. And to be able to spend those grant funds, we need the board to increase appropriations by the amount of those grants so we can spend that money. Any funds we don't spend would go back to the state. And so the ask tonight, if there's no questions, is to approve the resolution adopting a supplemental budget in the 200 funds to reflect those additional grant dollars.
Thank you very much. We love additional grant dollars. All right, is there a motion to approve the resolution?
I recommend the approve the resolution adopting the supplemental budget for Fund 200 Special Revenue Fund as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much. The other one is fairly similar, except this is in our general fund. And this is not asking for additional appropriations. This is a transfer of appropriations. And so what we have happening in the general fund is we have some overspending in our 2000 function, which is support services. 500,000 or so of that is forecast 500 to 750,000 of that is forecast to be damage from the ice storm to Middleton, where we have out-of-pocket expenses that we spend the money and get reimbursed by our insurance company. So in order to pay those bills, we need to increase appropriations. We also have a little bit of cost overrun forecast. I don't think it'll be quite as high as I projected here, but I went a little bit high to make sure I covered it. And so what we're asking for tonight is to pull $900,000 out of contingency and move that into function 2,000 for support services, so we can pay those bills related to Middleton without overspending our appropriations. I think the important thing to note here is this will have no impact on our ending fund balance based on the forecast. The insurance funds will be reimbursed by the insurance company, and we have underspending in other areas of our budget that will account for the transfer of appropriations to cover the overspending in support services. That's kind of complex and a lot of stuff there. If there's no questions, I'm asking for the resolution to be approved, but if there's questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Does anybody here have questions? We've learned how to speak, Gary. We get it now. All right. Does anybody want to recommend a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution for appropriations transfer Fund 100 General Fund as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, she's already headed up there. She knows what to do. Yep.
I should have
She's
just
like-
stayed over here.
Totally.
I'm gonna think about it. All right. Last month, we brought to you the rest of our English language arts and our English language development adoption. And tonight, I am here bringing the proposed ELA, ELD adoption and materials for second read and approval.
Thank you so much. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the partial English language arts and English language development instructional materials as recommended by the English Language Arts Adoption Committee.
Good job. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
All
you're up
right.
again.
I'm back. I'm just staying here. All right. So in addition to the ELA, ELD, we also brought to you our elementary mathematics curriculum, and that is the adoption of Bridges 3. And we're here for second read and approval.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion?
I'd like to motion to adopt the proposed elementary mathematics instructional materials as recommended by district staff.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank
Thank you so much. All right, Christine Andrag is up next. We need to vote whether we'd like to endorse Christine Riley. She was the only candidate who applied for this position with the Northwest Regional ESD. And Christine, the floor is yours.
I mean, that pretty well covered it, so.
So what do we think, guys?
Yeah, so just for some context, any vacancy on the Northwest Regional ESD board within a zone has to be voted on by every board represented in that zone. So that's why this vote is coming to you. Christine Riley was the only applicant for zone 1. She is the incumbent, and she has been with the ESD Board of Directors since 2012.
Wonderful. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to move that the Sherwood School District Board of Directors vote yes, no, or abstain to endorse Christine Riley, Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors, Zone 1.
I think you have to pick
So
one.
you have to pick the
Oh,
yes and no or the
I'm
abstain.
just
and the
reading,
no.
you guys. It's like past my bedtime. Okay.
Let's start with yes and see if that floats.
Let's start with yes. I move that the Sherwood School District Board of Directors vote yes to endorse Christine Riley, Northwest Regional ESD Board of Directors for Zone 1.
Great job. Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Christine has her vote. Okay. All right. Last but not least, Mr. Rose is here.
Thank you for letting me clean up here. Chair Hawkins, Dr. Lyon, members of the board. I am excited to be here for the third year in a row to talk about the health healthy and safe schools plan that the district has to approve. We have frankly struggled with getting the timing right on our lead water testing as ODE requires. We did it too early, and that has caused us 2 years of being told we do not have a adopted plan as needed. I have completely assured the department that we will be in compliance. They have agreed to this plan, so if you all approve it tonight, we can put this one to rest for a little bit, and we can go about testing water for lead and dealing with asbestos and everything else that's part of a healthy and safe schools plan.
Is there a motion?
I would like to motion to approve the health and safety schools plan as submitted by Mr. Rose.
Wonderful. Is there a second?
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. I did not ask you earlier, Christine, if we have any comments non-agenda related, but the head no? Yeah, okay, we don't. All right. The next meeting of the board will be held on May 22nd. It's going to be a short meeting, but we encourage you to attend. We are going to announce our new superintendent, and we're excited to do that. So for this evening, our meeting is adjourned. Good night.